Good morning, all. Thank you for your interest in looking at this webinar. My name is José Cavazos. Today, I'm going to be presenting this webinar on MD PhD, Is It Right for Me? This webinar has been developed, or the slide set has been developed by a subcommittee or a committee of the MD PhD section of the Group of Research, Education, and Training of the AAMC. Now, what I will be discussing is the application process, the training, what this career is about, and I will be more than happy to take questions from the audience. Now, I'm gonna, please keep your microphones mute. Okay, so this is me. Actually, I shaved for this occasion. I am the director of the South Texas Medical Scientist Training Program. It's one of the MSTPs here in Texas. And I'm a professor of neurology, neuroscience, and physiology, and the chair-elect of this AAMC MD PhD section organization, as well as the MD PhD, the National Association of MD PhD programs. Now, let me just take away. Okay, perfect. Biomedical scientists use the power of research to understand and cure human diseases. The schism between science and medicine is getting bigger and bigger. It has been calculated that the scientific literature doubles in size in 10 years. So this schism between science and research requires people who are kind of in the middle, who are translating the science into medicine and taking inspiration from the medicine and making better animal models, more pointed questions in the science so that we can more effectively translate this. So MD PhDs are fascinated by human biology. They are fascinated by questions, by why. But why is this doing that? We were looking, and we in general are a group of people who are creative, very persistent, meticulous, and examining and pushing to get a project to completion. And so what we are looking is at this intersection between science and medicine, and we are about 3% of the MD workforce, only 3%. However, we account for more than 60% of the NIH grants that are given to physicians. So we are really an important piece in this engine that is bringing science to medicine, and again, bringing better questions and inspiration to help lead teams of scientists to do things in biomedical research. Now, there are about 100 or so MD PhD programs across the nation. There's 180 laws medical schools, so not everyone has an MD PhD programs. About 50 of these programs have support from the NIH, from the National Institute of General Medical Sciences, in a grant called MSTP. They tend to be the larger programs, and pretty much the majority, if not all, of the MD PhD programs will give you financial support throughout the entire arch of the MD and PhD training, as well as giving you waivers of tuition, so we pay for your tuition, stipend, and fees. Now, generally speaking, the idea is that we're looking for trainees to get into this career And once you get into our training programs, if you're in good standing, your tuition, stipend, and fees are guaranteed. But you need to first complete the first 2 years of medical school, which in the majority of programs have or encompass the basic sciences. Throughout that period of time, you do a little bit of research. Quite often you do some laboratory rotations before you start MS1, and between MS1 and MS2, and perhaps, one Friday afternoon or etc. You get then to a point of transitions. The majority of programs will get you to take step one examination, which is a standardized test, just like the MCAT, about the basic sciences. Once you take that, then you often do a clinical rotation. In some programs, you do some clerkships, but in general, you have a little bit of actual clinical experience in the hospital wards prior to transitioning into your PhD part. What that experience gives you is an idea of what clinical medicine is about. It gives you perhaps an idea of what the specific specialty that you thought you were going to do. And then you delve into your graduate school, typically wet lab, but it can also be translational science, epidemiology, and social sciences. Some programs specifically offer those things. So you need to understand what is the palette that each of the programs offer. But during these 3 to 6 years of graduate school, you acquire the skills to understand and pursue a hypothesis to completion. And by the time that you end up, you become an expert on a particular area of disease. Now, you do during graduate school quite often a few rotations. Perhaps while you are in the second or third or fourth year, you might be doing a Friday afternoon shadowing. If you are a cancer biologist in your PhD, you might be shadowing an adult oncologist, a pediatric oncologist the following year for about 10 half days or something like that, to give you an idea of what is the clinical phenotype to combine with this graduate school training. But research is the primary focus of this point. Now, once you complete this, the majority of programs have some sort of transitional bootcamp to get you back to shed all that rust of clinical medicine and get you to do clinical rotations. And then year 7 and 8, you do have clerkships, and you find your specialty. And in year 8, in about September of year 8, you are applying for your residency. And, typically a physician scientist residency, as you will see in a second. But, throughout this period of time, not only we're paying you for your medical school tuition and fees, but we're giving you a stipend that it is in about $30,000. Okay, now, so our alumni, what do? They choose residency training specialties that include a portion of research. Now, once they go out, a significant number of our alumni do 50% or more of research. I will show you a slide to give you an idea of what happens. About 80% of students will choose this choice, this career of MD PhD. And about 80 to 85% of our graduates end up doing and contributing and doing some research along their path as MD PhD. About 53% end up doing more than 50% of research. So these are the outcomes. 68 do academia, people, we have MD, PhD faculty leading industry research. This is important and critical. You know, we need new drugs, new devices, new vaccines, while all others are in institutes like NIH, CDC, etc. And they conduct a variety of research, all the way from bench science to translational clinical trials to patient-oriented research and even some health services research. This is an example of one of our graduates. Juanita Merchant is a professor of medicine. She's the chief of gastroenterology, and yes, she does endoscopies and other kinds of things, but she studies the transcriptional control of GI peptides that regulate cell growth and cancer in the GI tract. Now, this is an example of myself. Throughout this process, I have done bench lab, and in fact, I still publish bench lab research, but working with a team of scientists. I have done clinical observations, clinical trials, healthcare outcomes, and even I was part of a team that took an idea to the market and got the regulatory trials and the FDA clearance for a device regarding seizures. What threads the entire thing here is epilepsy and seizures. So I am a neurologist. I practice epilepsy and I examine things in the lab regarding epilepsy. So I'm a world-known scientist in epilepsy. I have made significant contributions to the care of people with epilepsy. I've been part of FDA panels. For example, I was part of the FDA panel that approved the use of cannabidiol, which is one of the ingredients in marijuana, for the use in some of the epilepsy syndromes. So our expertise is critical, and it is critical, and it is very, very exciting to me to have so many opportunities to do activities. Now, this is the slide from a group of people who are our graduates who are in academic full-time practice. And among those, 50 to 53% are doing more than 50% research. So in blue is the proportion of people from left to right who are doing research. And as you can tell, even people who are doing a lot of clinical activities, 70, 80% of activities, they are doing a portion of their time doing research, perhaps more translational, perhaps more clinical trials. But along this spectrum, in an orchestra, we need all players. We need even the guy doing the triangle and the person doing the drums every so often. It's part of the entire experience of biomedical research. We need smart people who have the training in all of these medical specialties to be able to translate medicine and science into medicine and take inspiration from medicine into better science. Now, how do you prepare and apply to medical school and MD, PhD programs? Well, so first of all, we're doing a holistic review. And this is an important thing. I have been quoted many times to say, one number doesn't define you, but multiple numbers do. Okay, now, so we are looking for individuals who are committed to this physician-scientist career. However, we need you to have had some degree of empathy and experience in the care of others. It could be in a nursing home, it could be volunteering in a hospital. We're looking for about 100, 150 hours, no more, truly. Because what we are putting the most weight is in the experiences in productive research. We do want to have human beings who have integrity and maturity, but they have had also strong academics. The benchmarks, as you will see, the medians and the averages are high. Having said that, as a, you know, we examine your application in total, and we want to have an activity or a hobby or some other life experiences that humanize you. So that's part of the application. Now, so the key aspect is enough research experience to understand what you are getting into. This is a long career. Now, your life is taken care of because once you finish your residency, your MD PhD training, you are going to go to a residency that typically lasts 5 years. They are going to be paying you $60,000, $70,000, and then you're going to become medical school faculty, with salaries above $100,000. And so your life is going to be taken care of. You're not going to have student debt. There are multiple mechanisms to unload all of those loans that you may have acquired in your life. But what we're looking for is that you have done multiple summer projects, an undergraduate portion of research where you go and perhaps do a senior research thesis where you take a project and hopefully you take it to completion. You present it as a first author in conferences, national, even in the current COVID days, you are able to present in this type of setting. Now, many people do, about half of our matriculants do 1 or more years before embarking in this. The NIH, for example, has a fully paid postbac where they provide you about $30,000 of funding, and you can do 1 to 2 or 3, even 3 years of postbac experience. My own daughter did that. And I have to tell you that this is an important experience, particularly for those of you who might not have acquired enough research, because it gives you a certainty that this is the career that you want to pursue. Now, we need you to be familiar with testing a hypothesis. The scientific method is critical. We are looking for budding scientists, for people who also have done enough clinical experience to know that they want to combine these two things. You can do it all, okay? But we want you to be doing some significant amount of research. In general, this is about 1,000 hours at least. Those are the people who are most competitive. In some institutions, you get 3,000 or 4,000 hours of research. So if you have done just a single rotation, that may not be enough. Now, nationally, we have about 5,500, 5,600 MD PhD trainees. As I said, it is about 3% of the entire workforce. This past year, we had about 1,800 MD PhD applicants. In general, they do 14 applications to MD PhD, in some cases, plus 5 or 6 MD. So the average applicant actually has done more closer to 18, 20 applications. In 2019, we had 705 matriculants. This year, we are having what it appears to be a class of about the same size, 700 and something. Now, about 11% are underrepresented ethnic and racial minorities, but there are a significant number of people who indicate that they have a multiracial ethnicity. In total, about 16% are underrepresented or diverse minorities getting into these programs. Now, 46% of women started in 2019. Now, these are the numbers. The total pool applied with an average MCAT of 510. Look at the range, 472 to 528, which is the highest. GPAs ranging from 1.9 to 4.0, but the mean still is high. Now that's the applicant pool. The people who matriculated had an average of 516, but I want you to pay attention to the range. One number doesn't define you. If you have a low GPA and a low MCAT, it might be a hard sell to get in. You might need to pursue an academic curricular-based master's degree to try to apply to these programs. So GPAs are high, benchmarks are high, but once again, I have seen people, people in the upper 5%, meaning even people with 520 and higher for MCAT, 8% of them do not get in. And that's an important point. You need to right-size your numbers with the programs. Every program in their website where you can ask. This afternoon, we're going to have multiple opportunities for you to ask, what is your average? In general, the ranges for programs vary from year to year. And while I have taken people with a 502, for example, I don't do that every year. And it really depends on the individual and the life story. That's why your application has all these essays, and these essays are very important. It's also very important, those letters of recommendation. So what is the process? The process takes time. And hopefully, this is partly why we reach out to you, because we want you to be doing research experiences. Any of you can go and apply to the summer programs at NIH, perhaps for next year, or perhaps consider a postbac at NIH or at many of our institutions. We offer some opportunities. You can work as a laboratory technician for a research lab. But once again, we want you to take a project and move it and push it forward. In general, we do have obviously the MD pre-requirements, but we want you to have research experiences and clinical exposures and activities and life experiences. In general, the process opens in June. For all the programs are in AMCAS, including the Texas MD PhD programs. All of us are in AMCAS. Now, if you want to apply also to the MD program, MD only program, then you submit your application in TMD-SAS. States of residency in general do not matter for MSTPs because we are having to do recruitment nationally. Having said that, we are looking for individuals who are U.S. Citizens and permanent residents. DACA students and international students are considered on a case-by-case basis. Now, the process begins now. You filled your application in AMCAS, and you need to ask your research advisors to submit their letters. You need to ask your institutions to submit your bio sketches. And this is very important because there is a process of 4 to 6 weeks for verification, where AMCAS examines your application and credits your courses as correctly placed. The same process happens in TMD-SAS. But these are two processes, so you need to send letters to both places if you're applying to both places. Now, then in the fall, we start doing interviews this year. Because of COVID, the majority of programs, we will be doing virtual interviewing for everybody, including people who are local, for fairness and equity. Now, in the beginning in October 15, we can provide early acceptances. Some of our programs are rolling acceptances, but generally speaking, acceptances happen all the way until, May, middle of May. And many times, like my program, we started with a summer rotation beginning on June 1st, and your stipend begins on that day. Now, what you should be looking in programs, you need to look for the community, the environment, how the students, how the program is structured, what PhD the institution is offering, what kind of mentors they have, the community involvement, the alumni achievement. Examine where your applicants have gone for residencies. That's a very important point. Location is obviously important. And as you are interviewing and seeing, do you see yourself fitting in? Do you see yourself being one of them? All of those things are part of this community. Now, we do have a lot of resources, MD-PhD resources, aamc.org, MD-PhD. If you just put AAMC, MD-PhD, the first link is that. NIH has some training. There is a lot of people who you can ask questions about MD-PhDs. I have multiple websites. If you Google my last name, Cavazos, and MD-PhD, you're going to find out quite a few long webinars talking about the career, talking about the application, talking about the current environment of COVID and how to apply, and what are all these questions about, well, it was pass, fail, or not. Don't worry about it. We are going, everybody's in the same boat, and we're going to take a holistic view about each of you. Now, at this point, I'm going to stop the screen sharing, and I will be happy to take questions from the audience. Please unmute yourself and go ahead. Also, you could use the chat if you want to remain a little more anonymous. Thank you. We have about 14 minutes for questions, guys.
So I have a question regarding kind of gap years and kind of how those can sometimes look on in the application process. So I've heard it can be kind of a red flag if you take a gap year to go and do something that's not research. Is that always the case? And if you come back and then you do a second year that's kind of going back to research to show like a new commitment to research, is that going to kind of allay those concerns, or how does that end up working?
Certainly. As I said earlier about now, there has been a slow creep of individuals doing postdocs. And in fact, we have a survey that is happening as we speak in the past few weeks, asking for how many in your last few classes have had a postdoc. So in general, about half of the group is postdoc. Now we are looking for committed people. Now, commitment doesn't mean that if you are very interested in getting an experience in Germany, Italy, Thailand, or you want to do a Goldwater, or you go somewhere else to do some serving activities. We evaluate every single one. Having said that, it's going to, in the minds of some reviewers, there might be some disadvantage if you do not explain well in your holistic trajectory why you are doing that. So I like you to have, this is a long career. If you want to have a year where you go and travel and have some life experiences, that's awesome. But you need to go back, get a year of research, recommit yourself to that, and perhaps you will be a better candidate. I remember an example of one of our applicants who was accepted, by the way, by a truckload of people who came from being homeless to, went to a great institution, and then had a gap year, just like you are indicating, because he wanted to give back to homeless. And so there was a life story associated to that. But after that, he ended up doing 2 years at NIH, ended up being accepted at every single institution that he applied, including some of the top Ivies. And so it really depends on how you structure that. This is why the application is carefully written. It's not something that you write over a weekend. It takes almost a month to do. Okay, I see another question. What would your advice be for applicants who try to graduate a semester early and want to take only a few gap years, a few months? So, do something that is meaningful, hopefully continue, expand your research experience. Again, you are hearing research, research, research. That is because the majority of the admission committees for MD PhDs are filled with people who are doing research. And so it's natural and human to try to clone yourself. But the truth of the matter, most program directors will push for individuals who have who are non-traditional, okay, but are really committed. So the question here is, are you really committed to the profession? Do you have the passion to do this? Are there in the PhD programs that involve humanities with science? Yes, absolutely. If you go to the AAMC MD PhD website, what you're going to find is a spreadsheet that we tend to fill every few years, couple of years or so, indicating the types of programs that you have. I believe in Texas UTMB had a program with humanities and social sciences. We have a program with translational science and radiological sciences. Translational science can do epidemiology, but true social sciences and humanities, we don't. So you need to examine programs. A person that can tell you a lot about those is Maggie Johnson at UPenn, who's the program coordinator up there, has a webinar on that particular topic. Anybody else who wants to ask a question, or any of the directors who want to unmute? I see Karen too. So anybody? What are some common weaknesses? Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I have a question. I already graduated and I didn't do any research. Is it too late for me? Are there any things I could do?
No. But in order to be competitive to programs, I will highly encourage to apply to the NIH program, for example. The NIH postbac, as I said, pays $30,000 per year, and every second year more, et cetera, et cetera. It is offered to all postbacs who are within 3 or 4 years of graduating. Alternative ways of getting there is by working at a research institution that is near your community if you have strong ties and you cannot move. certainly that would be a way. So you're going to have to be starting to be a volunteer, perhaps in a research lab, and eventually they will hire you, or you will keep applying for research positions. Karen indicated that yes, the UTMB program has a social science PhD, and they periodically have taken applicants for their program. I will encourage you to reach out to them for more questions. There's a question here that says common weaknesses of applicant. Well, obviously the easiest ones are the academic benchmarks, but the things that we are looking are significant research experiences. So as I said, people with very strong stories that have a passion for research, we're gonna find a way to, over time, get you into a career that gets there, into an MD PhD program. Karen in the chat indicated and put together the link for the PhD programs at UTMB. Is there any question?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Specifically for you, I've been working in the same neuroscience lab for a few years now. And I found a topic that I'm working on in the lab currently that I would like to continue on as a PhD topic in neuroscience. How would I go about finding a program that fits those interests?
Okay, so so first of all, you can find every single, so there's a list of MD PhD programs, and you can find that list. Then you start looking for their neuroscience specifically, or the area of your interest. You can access resources such as NIH Reporter, and in NIH Reporter, you're gonna find, who is doing research in a particular topic. Another resource that you can, across the country.
I guess my question is more that, is it detrimental that I already have a specific focus in mind that I want to do? Okay.
No. Quite often, and I have seen this, people change as they get their basic sciences throughout the body, and a lot of the interest came from just being able to have that experience. Generally speaking, you sell your strength. So your application may be actually fairly powerful because you already have decided a particular area. And so you have been seeking experiences in that particular area. And perhaps you may have done some shadowing clinical experiences in that particular area. So that may be something else to do. But, we sell ideas. And so you are selling the idea that you want to become a physician scientist in neuroscience. And everything there is written that way. Now, once you are in, you may be able to change to something else. You may become a microbiologist. So it's not detrimental, but you're gonna be also finding that not every single place has investigators in your area of expertise or your area of interest. Did you want to go through that list of questions? Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot. You mentioned earlier that you receive a stipend in addition to have a school paid for it. Yes, we generally speaking give you $30,000 plus minus health insurance and benefits, and we pay for graduate school and we pay for medical school. So the $30,000 is for living expenses. There is Karen, would you mind copying into the chat rather than me searching while I answer the next question? Do MD-PhD admissions team value consistent research in a single lab or participation in multiple research experiences? Every journey is different. It depends on the experiences that you have had. We certainly love to see an individual publish a paper. Only a quarter of people end up with a publication who are MD-PhD frequents at time of application. But quite often, about 2 out of 3 have done poster presentations. So I do encourage you to do poster presentations. The national list of AAMC programs is listed. That was Jennifer who put it up there. Students who had research planned during the summer were canceled. Do you think admissions committees will consider this cancellation? Absolutely yes. And the impact it has in the application? Yes. For the next 10 years, the impact of COVID into your career plans, into your opportunities will be asked over and over and over again. So you might want as well to start writing a little piece and putting it handy because it's gonna be, asked and asked and asked. And we're gonna adapt. And so as you can tell, professional conferences are now doing poster presentations via online webinar system. So what you put is this poster was accepted to present in Society for Neuroscience 2020, canceled due to COVID-19, okay? And you close, but the poster was accepted. Now, if it wasn't submitted, you can say, I will encourage you to submit, even if they don't get, because at least there's a paper trail and you can provide something, even if it is canceled. Now, do you want me to ask you the list? Yes, Karen, please do.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so I think you probably covered the question about what is the whole path and how to apply. And then what is expected from an application for an MD PhD. I assume that's also been covered. How many years of experience should one apply with? Was that covered?
Well, we examine everyone as is. We certainly, as I said, we're looking for at least 1,000 hours of research experiences at time of application. Okay, that's an important piece. We want you to be in the lab, to have failed in the lab. That's good that you have failed in the lab, because that's what science is about. You throw the dice multiple times, you're not gonna get 6 all the time. So the answer, it depends. For some people, they are very competitive with 1,000 hours. For some people, I have seen applicants with 15,000 hours. Now that's about 5 years of experiences out there. So it depends. Karen?
So another question was, I need to gain some experience. How can I get in touch with some medical professionals during this era when I'm not able to meet them individually?
Email, social media, reach out to programs, ask them to connect you, LinkedIn, you name it. I mean, there's, we're there, believe me. So that's how you do that. You persist and someone will latch.
Okay, so the next,
as an MD PhD, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask the next question. You keep going.
Go ahead.
Okay. I want to know more about how programs are adapting to COVID and the specifics of UT Houston and Southwestern.
So you're going to be able to learn about it in this afternoon. All programs are needing to adapt. Most of the programs are going to have substantial virtual experiences, but we still have a national test that you are going to take, and all programs take you there. So, you know, you're very fortunate that in Texas, we have terrific programs across the entire spectrum. Even, you know, the you know, the smaller programs here in Texas have terrific training as compared to other places in the country. So you are blessed in many ways by having terrific, very dedicated training. And I can assure you, any of the graduates from any of the programs in Texas can get to the top of the pinnacle of our career. Next.
I think you've covered the next three probably already. What is the tuition and cost of MD PhD programs? I think you probably covered that.
Zero.
Zero. What are the prerequisites for an MD PhD program? I assume you've covered that. What makes a competitive MD PhD application? And I think you've probably covered that already. Then this one, when students graduate from the MD PhD program, do they go on doing only research or only medicine, or do they do a bit of both?
Majority do a little bit of both. That's the majority. But as you saw from the graph that I showed, the majority are doing both, a little piece of research, a little piece of clinical. But what I will tell you is that the individuals, and this is one of the questions that is in there, you really can decide. The majority of our students, our graduates, go to do a residency that includes some research. Now, in the answer to Jacob earlier, the research that you do during years 13, 15, from now, okay, now it's fully paid and it's fully tuition, etc. But years 13, 15, those are the ones that you are going to be making typically for the 10 years of your faculty career, when you are becoming the geneticist of aneurysms, as Diana is, or you become the cholesterol guru, as Andy is, or you become the, you know, cancer researcher, or hematologist, or infectologist, etc. So that's, and how much, we all bring our own salaries. So we need to do grants for research. So we pay our research time, or we do clinical. And there are the years that the numbers are backward, and years that are back to, you know, 50-50 or 80-20 or whatever. One last question: will it count to be able to do research as a dietitian internship? That's a hard question. If you're doing research during that period of time and you are able to do a project while you are working as a dietitian internship, certainly. Particularly if you end up doing nutritional research. Sharon?
I have one last question from this list, and that is the GRE required as well as the MCAT? And I'll answer that, no. And what are the statistics of each entering class, their average MCAT score, and their GPA extracurriculars? And I suspect you answered that earlier.
Yes, so you need to ask people around. So the median 516 nationally, that's the average too. The GPA is 3.8, but that's the average. One number doesn't define you. There's big ranges. As I said, I can take a low number here, a low number there, but you know, it's a part of a class. So with that, I need to stop because we are actually 7 minutes over. And what we're gonna do now is to present the different classes. So directors, we're 7 minutes behind. I have only 5 minutes. Karen, kick me out when I am done. I do have another presentation to share. which I am going to do now. Give me a sec, share this, share. So this is my program. Are you able to see the slide with people?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, so this is my program. Our MD PhD students are here. You know, some of them here, some of our graduates, our class has 7 applicants. We're an MSTP. Our graduates go over the place. We can provide you links to show you the classes, you know, where they go all over the place, you know, all the way from Stanford, Harvard, Hopkins, Penn, you name it. We provide $30,000 per year for stipend. We're an MSTP. We give you health insurance and tuition cost. This is another one of our students. These are 3 of our graduates, all doing PSTP residencies. On the right, Zinn is at Stanford. In the middle, doing PSTP, internal medicine, oncology. In the middle is Miriam, who is doing a neurosurgery residency at UVA, University of Virginia, PSTP. And on the left is Brett, who is doing PSTP at UT Southwestern Pediatrics. Our program, as I indicated, is a 2+4+2, very traditional, with a boot camp before getting back into clinical medicine. But throughout this process, you do have some rotations in the lab, rotations in the clinics, etc. So it's an integrated program. We have this quote, one number doesn't define you. We look for integrity, maturity. You know, we do holistic review. We read and interview about 70, 80 people in our class. And we admit a substantial number of students. We lose students to Harvard and you know, UCSF and the likes. But you know, we're an MSTP. We want the best students. You know, again, you saw that. We are doing, by the way, Eitan was a UT Austin graduate who is originally from El Paso. He is an MS4 student. Eric is a graduating his PhD and defending in July 13. This is the finish line. These guys are in great residencies, all of these fellows. This is our address. We will be available from 1 to 4 this afternoon, and I will have students as well as people in our group. We are more than happy to talk to you why we are one of the leading MSTP programs, the more innovative MSTP programs in the country. But you know, bottom line, as I said, I stand clearly. You should consider every single program in Texas. They are awesome. Okay, so apply all of the programs. We look forward to your application. And with that, I need to make co-host. Are you presenting, Diana?
I'm not presenting anything. I'm just going to be talking.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and congratulations on thinking about a career as a physician scientist and pursuing an MD PhD. It is an absolutely fabulous career. You get all the instant gratification of seeing patients and taking care of them, but at the same time, you can take information you learn from your patients into the laboratory, samples and outcomes from your patients, to really apply that into laboratory-based studies to understand the mechanism of disease, and then turn around what you learn from the lab and take it back to the patients. And what could be a more satisfying career than that? I can go on, but I think everybody who does this would agree that it is just a fantastic career. So I run the MSTP program, the NIH-funded MD-PhD program at the University of Texas McGovern Medical School in Houston. It is actually a tri-institutional program that involves the McGovern Medical School, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and the University of Puerto Rico. So the program started in 1980 between MD Anderson and McGovern Medical School. They set up an MD PhD program because they felt that combining the medical school with MD Anderson really gave a great opportunity for good clinical training and research, and excellent research, in particular in cancer biology. So the two schools also come together to form the graduate school. So you have a choice of over 500 faculty to choose as possible PIs during your PhD years, both at the University of Texas McGovern Medical School, but also at MD Anderson Cancer Center. And then about a little over 10 years ago, we began to partner with the University of Puerto Rico to allow students that do medical school at the University of Puerto Rico to come to Houston and get their PhD as part of the MD PhD program that we had already established. So those students are fully integrated into our program, but do their medical school training in Puerto Rico. So that was done in part to really improve the training of the students in Puerto Rico, but it was a great opportunity to expand diversity in our program. And so that's been a big push, a big improvement in the program to partner with the University of Puerto Rico. We take 5 to 7 students through the traditional pathway into the medical school, and then another 1 to 2 students per year from the University of Puerto Rico, which gives us around 55 to 60 students in the program at any one time. So that's one unique aspect of the program. I don't think you'll find anywhere else that has as many potential PIs to work with. And it's because we bring together these two very large institutions. Another unique aspect of the program is the way we train the students. From the very beginning, we have let our students complete the classroom part of medical school, that didactic learning, and complete those clinical clerkships before they went into their graduate work. And we did that because we really wanted the students to understand the diseases that they're studying. Medical school is a little bit like learning to ride a bike. The first couple of years you read about how the bike is made, how the pedals turn the wheels, and so on. But it's not until you do those clinical clerkships that you really get on the bike and ride it. It's not until you go into the hospital and start rotating through internal medicine, pediatric surgery, and so on, that you understand, begin to really understand aspects of the disease, like the fact that a drug may work in one patient but not in another patient, and our limitations in terms of imaging for disease. We're still looking at gross changes in the structure of organs and not really imaging much in terms of the molecular changes in their organs. And things like, when you think about it, we're sort of barbaric in some aspects of medicine, like we take blood from one person and put it in another person. I mean, how ridiculous is that? Why we should have a blood substitute by now. And so it's during those clerkships that you really learn about diseases. And we want you to have that understanding and ability to think beyond what you learned in the classroom when you're doing your PhD years. So the students typically enter into the clerkships by the spring of their second year. They complete step 1 before they start their clerkships. Then they do all their clerkships and are done by the following year, about the same time of year. Take step 2, and then they go into the laboratory. So you get step 1 and step 2 done before you enter the labs. You go through the laboratories. We require the students to spend at least 1 semester during their PhD training going to a clinic a half day a week. And many of the students actually devote more time to going into the clinic a half day a week. And we do that for 2 reasons. We want them, they can choose clinics that match up with the research they're doing, or they can choose a clinic in an area that they plan to do their internship and residency in. So this gives them a chance to work long-term with one physician. It's kind of a unique aspect that medical students don't have. Gives them a chance to really learn about a subspecialty they plan to go into. And in some places, it has provided insight into their PhD work. We've had students that went to clinic and actually collected samples from their patients that they took back to the laboratory for their PhD work. So between all of that, our students end up with learning what it is to be a physician scientist, even during that training, and having that ability of going back and forth between the clinic and their research, and to be able to really get very strong letters from a physician for their applications for internship and residency. And I think that's one of the reasons where our students do very well in terms of placement into internships and residency. You can go to our websites and see that. A couple more quick unique aspects of the program. We sit in the Texas Medical Center, unbelievable resources here between all the institutions that are here in the medical center. We obtain we have NIH funding, institutional funding, but we also have funding from a local foundation called the Cullen Foundation. And that funding allows students in our program to do their PhD outside of the UT Health Science Center and MD Anderson. So the reason we approached this foundation to be able to do that is because I didn't want MD PhD students in my program coming in and having a very specific area of medicine that they wanted to do their research in, and not be able to do their PhD with a world's expert across the street at Baylor College of Medicine. It didn't make any sense not to completely take advantage of all the resources in TMC in Houston. So we do have funding to allow students that are in our program to go into local institutions, and we've had one even go to the NIH to do their PhD. As an example, there is somebody that just finished our program that's doing his residency in internal medicine at Yale. He wanted to do tropical medicine and specifically vaccine development for parasites. And there was nobody at UT doing that. But across the street was Peter Hotez, who's like a world's expert in that area. So the student went and did his PhD at Baylor. So my goal as director is to make sure that you get the best training to be a successful physician scientist while you're in my program. So that's one of the reasons why I really fought to have this training, so that we're able to open up those opportunities and take advantage of the entire Texas Medical Center. So if you have other questions, I'll be on in the Zoom room or whatever this afternoon with my administrator and some of our students. So good luck with your applications. It's tough applying for MD PhD programs during a normal year. It's going to be much more complicated this year, but remember, everybody's in the same boat. All the other students are going through the same problems, and we're all struggling with how to make sure that we give you a fair interview and a fair chance to express your career goals and so on, at the same time learning about our program. So we'll all be struggling with that. Okay, so good luck.
Thank you. I believe, who is next? I believe it's Andy. And Dr. Zinn?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Let me see if I can actually share a screen. Host disabled attendee screen sharing. Can you allow that, please? Okay.
Jennifer, can you?
I should be able to do it now.
Request camera control. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can get my slides to show up now. I'm going to give
showing.
I'm going to give a very truncated version of a longer talk that I give frequently to undergraduates, just telling you just a tidbit about the MD PhD program that I direct at UT Southwestern, one of the oldest MD PhD programs in Texas, and in fact, two of the current MD PhD directors in Texas, me and Dr. Milewicz, are graduates of our program. So I will be in the session this afternoon from 1 to 3, along with some of our current students, and we will try to use breakout rooms, et cetera, to really let you find out anything in detail you want to know about our program. I agree with everything that Dr. Cavazos and Dr. Milewicz have said previously about MD PhD training, and I just want to highlight again what I think is distinctive about UT Southwestern. So, oops, did I get the wrong? I got the wrong slideshow. Here's the one I want to show. Let me close this one. Okay, so we are what's now considered a mid-size program. These numbers don't add up. That should be 59 graduate. About 100 students currently in the program. About almost 40% are women. We do have 12% underrepresented. That is not where we want to be, and we're making some really targeted efforts to increase that, particularly in light of the current events that are going on. I'm sure Jose pointed out that most of the MD PhD students in the Texas schools are not Texas residents. This is not, it's very different than the medical school class. We have no preference. Texas is a big state with a lot of good students, so we do have a lot of Texas residents, but that's because we're well known within Texas. And we are one of the programs that can take international students, although it's rare. We haven't had any in the last few years. And like most of the programs, we're the typical 2-4-2 curriculum, and that 4 years has stretched out a little bit. So it's averaging now just a little bit over 8 years, 8.3 years for our time to both degrees. So what's distinctive about Southwestern, I think, is that we really emphasize the basic end of translational research. Two of the founders of our programs were faculty members who won the Nobel Prize, Mike Brown of Brown and Goldstein cholesterol, and Al Gilman of G protein coupled receptor, G proteins, both of whom are probably in your biochemistry and cell biology textbooks these days. Dr. Gilman's deceased. Dr. Brown is actually still active and still involved in the program. And as Dr. Cavazos said, people want to clone their own. And so the MD PhD program at Southwestern tries to produce those kinds of physician scientists who are going to make exceptional breakthrough discoveries, really more at the basic end of translation. So if you're studying cancer at UT Southwestern, you're probably studying the molecular biology of an oncogene, not studying the effects of drugs in patients. So we really operate at the fundamental molecular aspect, most of our research. And our faculty represent this focus on basic science. We've had 6 win the Nobel Prize. We have 22 members of the National Academy of Sciences, and we have 15 Howard Hughes Medical Institute investigators. And all of these individuals mentor graduate students, and they're available to mentor MD PhD students. But that reflects the focus of the faculty overall in our PhD programs on basic mechanistic molecular science. We are growing in biomedical engineering, more applied research, and we have a program in organic chemistry, and we're forming a program in bioinformatics. But the crux of our training is still focused around molecular sciences. you can go to our website and really see the research that Southwestern's all about. So I'm not going to go through any specific examples. Our MD PhD students are involved in much of this research, again, more at the basic end, but some do more patient-oriented translational research. And our philosophy is that if you get grounded in fundamental molecular science, as you go through your career later on, you may become more clinical, but you will have that basic science background to be able to pursue a problem to whatever depth it takes you. So if you start with some type of cancer and then you discover that there is a particular drug that is effective, then you find the gene that is the protein that's the target for that drug, and you find the gene that regulates that protein's expression, you can take that discovery all the way down to the crystallography level. You might be interested in improving the drug by doing rational drug design and structure function analyses. You won't be afraid to stop at the problem and say, oh, I better run and get the PhD, real basic scientist now, because I don't know what I'm doing. And we feel that this training, while many people do end up doing more clinical or patient-oriented research, many people find a nice balance. And you can actually look at my own career as a geneticist, Dr. Milewicz's career, and see how having that basic science foundational training came to play as we got to the mechanistic aspects of diseases that we were interested in studying. I think other things that are distinctive about our program, we have 3 leaders. I'm the director. I have an assistant director, Michelle Gill, who is a pediatric infectious disease specialist. And we still have Dr. Brown involved. He's our emeritus director. He still comes to our weekly conferences and our retreats and other events. And all 3 of us are physician scientists. So that, I think, is one of the things that's distinctive. At Southwestern, like many of the other schools in Texas, we are a freestanding academic medical center. This means that the graduate education is really focused on learning how to do research. You're not going to be asked to be a teaching assistant. You know, undergrads aren't coming in and out of the lab to play Frisbee golf and things like that. It's get science done, push the frontiers, make discoveries. So our PhD curriculum also emphasizes being in the lab. We don't have a lot of classroom intensive PhD learning. It's get into the lab and learn how to do by apprenticing. We do what many other programs do, provide extra mentoring for MD PhD trainings to help with the long, arduous career path. Our students have big SIBs. They meet annually one-on-one with one of the directors. The students have created their own program to get some of the soft skills that are necessary to be a leader in academic medicine, things like how to advocate, negotiate, do elevator pitches, how to conflict resolution, all of those kinds of career development skills, and that they've created that as an optional program. And there's also a group that the women in the program have on to help support the particular challenges that they face in terms of work, career, life balance issues, things like that. Let's see. Okay, so I think to sum up our program, I think we're now a mid-sized MD PhD program on the national scale. We are one of the larger ones in Texas. I'm not sure if Baylor is now larger or if we kind of seesaw depending on our entering classes and graduating classes. But it's still, we're not so big that people don't get individual attention. The education is top-notch, both the medical school, which I will let you refer to the information that they provide out there, as well as the graduate school. Students go on to excellent residencies, just as the other programs. We have great facilities. We're expanding. We're growing as an institution. We're building 2 brand new buildings for cancer biology care and neuroscience. So we are continuing to expand and recruit more faculty, and I think that creates a very positive collaborative environment. When you're constantly expanding, you hire faculty, you hope that they will succeed and get to stay, and that makes them willing to collaborate with other people because everybody's working together to try to solve problems. It's not dog eat dog, who's going to get to be the faculty member that gets tenured and gets to stay here. So that's really at the DNA of Southwestern, that culture of collaboration. As I mentioned, we've been one of the longer standing programs in the state. We've been funded almost 40 years continuously now from the NIH. Most of our graduates have careers that involve research, which you have to have for the NIH to renew your funding. The institution puts a lot of resources in the program, and I think being in a dynamic, growing city, as most of the other cities in Texas are, that's still affordable for students to live on, is a real advantage to MD PhD training at UC Southwestern and at the other schools. I will stop here and hopefully see a lot of you between 1 and 3 and let you talk to the students and really get the scoop from them. Thank you.
I guess the next director is Julian. Can you stop sharing?
And I was next.
I believe so.
Okay. All right.
Oh,
All right. I don't need to share.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Mike Blanton, and I'm the MD PhD director here at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center in Lubbock, and I've been the director for the past 10 years. And our program is definitely what we would say is on the small side. We have currently 17 MD PhD students. We're looking to grow a little bit to about 24 over the next few years, but compared to Southwestern, Baylor, we are definitely on the small side. What I would say is that provides us a lot of flexibility. And I wanted to point out 2 areas of flexibility that I think make our program a little bit unique and allow you a broader span for different aspects. And one of those is I think they talked about the 2-4-2 plan or program, where basically you do the first 2 years of medical school, then you do your 3 to 4 years of your PhD, and then you return back and do the 2 years of medical school. That's kind of the traditional pathway, and that works. What we allow is a little bit of flexibility. Is you could do 2 years of medical, 3 years of medical school, then do your PhD. And so why would you want to consider that as an option? And one of the fun things that happens at medical graduation after 4 years of medical school is, we usually show at graduation where you've matched what medical specialty that you're going into, but we also put at the front is what you predicted you were going to start out when you first started. And believe me, it's about a 50% match. And so oftentimes through medical school, you thought you wanted to start in pediatrics. You start to do those 3rd-year rotations in pediatrics. No, I am not going to do pediatrics. And so it's in that time period that you really decide where you're going to do your medical specialty in. And of course, as an MD PhD student, you want that, if you're going to go into pediatrics as your medical specialty, you probably want to do research that's related to pediatrics. And so if you do a traditional 2+2-4-2, if those clinical rotations are going to happen after you do your PhD, and if that changes, then you may have a missing. And so what we allow you to do is again, you can do the 3rd year of clinical rotations and then do your PhD. And the beauty of that is, again, if you thought you were going to do pediatrics, you do those clinical rotations and you decide oncology, for example, or neurology or something is where your passion lies, then you can design your PhD that's exactly in line with what now is going to be, for sure, going to be your clinical specialty. So that flexibility. Now, some of you, it's never going to change. You want to do, oncology, and so there's no need to sort of break up your clinical years because that's the PhD path you want to take or in your clinical path. So we allow you to do the 2+4+2, or you can do 3+4 and then go back and do the last one. And so you can make that decision right up until the last minute and so forth. So that's an area of flexibility that our program allows you to do. Another thing is that, you know, I'm guessing that you're on this. Most of you are totally committed perhaps to the MD PhD path from the get-go. Other of you, there may be some of you that are not so sure. That, you know, that's a pretty big enchilada, that 7 to 8 years, and that you may not be entirely convinced that that's your career path. You love research, but you're not so sure. What our program allows you to do is, if you are not so sure, you start the medical school at our Texas Tech, you can actually join the MD PhD program from the medical school. What we typically have you do is you spend the first year of medical school. We have a summer research program. You do that and you come talk to me, and then you can apply to the MD PhD program from within the medical school. And again, that gives you flexibility, and it's a win-win for us. You know, we all know how you did in medical school the first year. You know, you've done that summer research, and now you're for sure committed to this as a physician scientist, as a career path. And so about a third of our students come through that path. And so again, it gives you more flexibility, and you know, for your career decision and so forth. So our program is pretty typical of, you know, basically medical school, graduate school, you get a stipend for that entire period. It's paid for. No one would ever say you would want to do this to get paid, but basically it makes the burden of doing an MD, PhD that entire time frame, it alleviates that financial burden and so forth. And so Lubbock's a great place to live. It makes it very easy. Medical school, you can get in and out to classes and so forth, a lot of flexibility. So it's a good place to spend that 7 or 8 years period of time and so forth. So that's one of the things we think is a real attribute as well. All right, I know we're way over time, and so that's a snapshot of what our program has. Again, I'll be there 1 to 4, and so if you'd really like to go into specifics, I would love to talk about my strategies for making you a successful MD PhD applicant for wherever you're applying, and so I'd be glad to talk to you later as well. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Julian?
See, okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes, you're fine.
Nope.
Go ahead.
I'm at Texas A&M here in College Station. Like the Texas Tech program, our program is a little unusual in that we give students a choice to do their PhD immediately after their preclinical basic sciences, where they can complete their clerkships. The basic science curriculum here is 18 months. Students who want to do their PhD will start then. Students who want to continue in their clinical training and do their clerkships for the PhD go on to their, finish their clerkships, and after they take step 2, they will start their PhD, typically I guess officially it's July, but they really start back in March while they're in medical school. There's a medical school class that they can take, and they do research rotations. The program's about 45 students right now. That's probably going to be between 40 and 45 students is going to be our steady state. It's probably nationally, it's on the small to medium-sized program. We just really got up to 45 students. The strengths here, engineering is what the M stands for in Texas A&M. Engineering program is very strong. And I want to emphasize that it's a, large, comprehensive research university. So if a student wants to do their PhD in medical anthropology, there are opportunities to do that. PhDs outside the medical sciences program do have in some way need to be relatable to biomedicine. So, probably we wouldn't approve a PhD in French literature, but we probably would approve a PhD in political science if someone wanted to study the politics and financing of healthcare systems. There's a School of Public Health, great chemistry department. It's really a large, diverse, full-service university. People do their clinical training in Houston. There are lots of translational research opportunities there. And the students take full advantage of interactions with the other students in the Baylor and UT MSTP programs. We have associate director in Houston. We have myself, an associate director here. So we provide support for students regardless of where they are at any point in time. Our students have done very well in the match. And they do a mixture of translational research, some in Houston at Houston Methodist or at the Alkek building. Many of them up here either in the medical school basic science faculty or with A&M basic science faculty outside the medical school. I'll be around from 2 to 4 to answer questions in the Zoom room. Okay, Sharon, it's yours.
Thank you. So sorry to be on late. There's like sort of too much going on in the world these days. I hope everyone's staying safe. So I'm Sharon Plon. I'm the director of the Baylor College of Medicine MSTP, and I know you've heard about a lot of other programs already this morning. We're based in Houston, and we do primarily students do their PhD in one of our graduate programs, and then we have a few students each year who go to Rice for bioengineering. I will say that our graduate school went through about a 2-year strategic planning redesign, which got launched this year. So if you are interested in our program, please take a look at our website. We have 7 new graduate programs that are really been kind of redesigned to represent the great research going on at in our school. And our medical school has also done a lot of redesigning of their medical school clerkships. And the way our MSTP works is students come in, they do 2 years of medical school, which includes 6 full months of clerkships. And so they get 3 core rotations completed before they go to graduate school. They take step 1 at the end of their 2nd year, and then they move into graduate school. And then when they return, they have about 1.5 years left of their training. We're always delighted to have students from UT, the UT system in our program. We will have one of our current students, Patrick Hunt, who's a UT Austin grad, in our afternoon session, answering questions as well as myself. And one of the things we're really trying to work on with our new training grant, we're entering our next 5 years of funding, is really looking at issues across the medical school related to health disparities. We do now have our medical school curriculum includes training on health disparities. And we also have a number of our medical students, our MD PhD students who've done PhDs related to things like vaccines in underdeveloped countries. We've had students work on how does the GI tract respond to viruses in the presence of malnutrition. So we have also tried to really incorporate that and will, I think, even more going into the future in both the graduate and medical school phases of our training. In contrary to what you just heard, we don't offer a lot of PhDs outside of more of the basic sciences. because we are based in the Texas Medical Center, and we're not, Baylor College of Medicine is separate from Baylor University. So the graduate opportunities are predominantly in the biomedical sciences, but really stretch from genetics and genomics to neuroscience to quantitative and computational biology. Again, the new graduate school has a big emphasis on data analysis. All the students do a 2-term biostatistics and essentially computer course in the fall of the first year of graduate school to try to really encourage people to be very thoughtful about data analysis and rigor and really performing rigorous and reproducible research. And again, I'm happy to take questions in our session this afternoon. But we really encourage people to apply. And I would say, and I'm sure you heard this in the earlier session, I know everyone's concerned about COVID-19. We're all going to try to be as flexible as possible in working with you. But one point I made last Saturday when we had our Cullen Symposium is also, it's really important for you all to be kind as well. The administrators are all going to be doing this remotely. Many of them now work remotely. They're going to be handling virtual interviewing for the first time. So I think if we're all patient and kind and flexible on both sides, it will be a great success, but just something to keep in mind.
Thank you, Sharon. I don't see, I think that we are done for today. So this afternoon, is there any pending last question or clarification that anybody wants to ask? I see Karen up there. Karen, anything else that you wanna?
I don't think so. We will post this recording as well as the recording that Sharon has from last weekend about how to prepare a competitive MD PhD program, probably on the UT Health Professions website.
Right, and so Diana Milewicz and I did an hour-and-a-half session on Saturday morning as part of our Cullen on kind of putting the application together, a lot more of the nuts and bolts. And we provided that recording to Karen.
So we'll post those on the health professions side. I think that's the most logical place for us to put it. So thank you.
The other alternative location, as I indicated, there's some that I did for doing your application. It's like 3 hours of, step by step.
Wow.
Yeah, well,
we can post that.
I can speak a lot. I can speak a lot.
We'll post
anyway, thank you, directors, for sharing your wisdom and your program's characteristics. We look forward to see you this afternoon. And Karen, thank you for giving us this opportunity to interact with your students. And we look forward to, mentor you throughout this process. This is a community. It's a very passionate community, and we really want to foster the development of physician scientists that can solve the many things that are still problems. As you can tell from, Dr. Fauci and others, people can take leadership positions that are critical to our biomedical research enterprise and medicine in general. Thank you for being here, and we look forward to see you this afternoon. Bye-bye.